quantity supplied, but price plays the most important role in the analysis of supply. For example, when the price of hand sanitizer is high, selling hand sanitizer is profitable, and so the quantity supply is large. Sellers of hand sanitizer work long hours, buy many raw materials, and hire many workers. By contrast, when the price of hand sanitizer is low, the business is less profitable, and so sellers produce less hand sanitizer. At a low price, some sellers may even choose to shut down, and their quantity supply falls to zero. Okay, let's take a look at this news video about the price of hand sanitizer, which has soared since the COVID-19 pandemic. Let's watch it together.
Working flat out. This business in Bottle Within makes hand sanitizer and disinfectant products, and it's no surprise in these difficult and worrying times, demand has gone through the roof. A few days ago, this part of the company's business was running at around 100,000 units a year. In just a few days, that's jumped to 2.5 million units, with more orders coming in by the hour.
So overnight we've ramped up production. Our guys are working shift pattern. Normally it's 9 to 5 kind of thing. Working shifts now, nighttime shifts if required, and yeah, it's gone crazy.
And the surge in orders has seen them take on new staff to keep up with demand.
Because of the amount of inquiries that we had last week, we made the decision on Friday basically we're going to double our production. We've taken on an extra 14 people in the last 4 days. I would expect that to continue, and probably next week we'll need another 5 or 6. But we want to limit it so that we can keep some sustainability and people get used and they get trained to do what they do.
I spend most of my day now just firefighting accounts to try and see how many units we can get to people who are continually on the phone, many who I've known for a long time because we deal with them, and also new customers on board.
The company say that the fact their suppliers are all UK based means they're in a strong position to deal with the huge rise in demand for their products while this national crisis continues. Ian Lang, ITV News, Bottle Within.
From the news video, we can see that there's a strong relationship between price and quantity supply, and it's called the law of supply. The law of supply claims that the other things equal, the quantity supply of goods rises when the price of the goods rises. Now, we move on to the supply curve. Supply curve is a graph of the relationship between the price of the good and the quantity supply. This is the example of supply curve. As you can see from the figure, that supply curve slopes upward. Because other things equal, a higher price means a greater quantity supply. This is in line with the law of supply. Now, take a look at the supply schedule. The supply schedule is a table that shows the quantity supplied at each price. The supply curve, which graphs the supply schedule, illustrates how the quantity supplied of the good change as its price varies. Because a higher price increases the quantity supply, the supply curve slopes upward. Move on to shifts in the supply curve. Any change that rises quantity supply at every price, such as fall in the price, would shift the supply curve to the right, and it's called an increase in supply. Similarly, any change that reduces the quantity supplied at every price would shift the supply curve to the left, and is called a decrease in supply. There are many variables that can shift the supply curve. Here are some of the most important. 1. Input price. To produce their output, sellers use various inputs such as raw materials, the manufacturer, machines, and laborers. 2. Technology. The advance in technology raised the supply of output because technology could reduce the amount of labor by reducing firms' costs. 3. Expectation. For example, the amount of hand sanitizer supplied today may depend on the firm's expectation about the future. If a firm expects the price of hand sanitizer to rise in the numbers of sellers. Yes, market supply depends on the number of the sellers. If one or two firms retire from the business, the supply in the market will fall. Now, I would like to give you a case study. Please check out this news video.
Rolling off the shelves in Singapore amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Local firms making them have so far managed to keep up with the nearly fourfold swell in demand and more costly raw materials.
That's also because they're not reliant on Chinese supply chains disrupted by the virus. Sherilyn explains.
This manufacturer can produce 8,000 to 10,000 bottles of hand sanitizer a day, and it's been toiling to keep up with the boom in demand, stoked by concerns around the COVID-19 outbreak. More orders are coming from Widyanata's main clients, like hospitals, corporations and schools. But there's a new group clamoring for more.
We are seeing more walk-in end users. That day we had a queue of about, I think, at least 200 people or more waiting outside for us to supply stocks of the sanitizers and sprays.
The firm, which makes chemical cleaners, says the surge is good for business. But it says prices of raw materials have gone up by about 5 times amid a global thirst for disinfectants. That includes the main germ-killing agent, ethyl alcohol, which is imported, as well as plastic bottles for packaging.
There's a shortage of raw materials, so supply is we need to work hard to secure those. So, I mean, because we have a track record in the business for the last 40 years, so we've been able to work with reputable suppliers. We did have to adjust our prices, and we try to do it in a minimal way.
Other manufacturers like Duprex have also witnessed a similar surge in demand and growing costs. Despite this, both firms say production lines are humming along, and they're unlikely to be disrupted by Chinese suppliers affected by the virus outbreak.
Some of our packagings are from China that disrupt the supply chain. However, we have our local suppliers as well, and alternative sources from Europe, from the USA. So we don't have much problem on that so far.
In this period, the firms are also eyeing new growth areas. Most of these companies produce larger bottles of hand sanitizer, but inquiries for mini bottles are also pouring in. And because of that, they say they may pivot production towards these smaller bottles if there's enough demand for it. More portable bottles were wiped clean from shelves, along with face masks and thermometers early this month when Singapore announced its first case of COVID-19.
Probably it's a little bit of panic buying, and everyone's buying a lot at the same time. So everyone should play a part, just buy what's sufficient.
With demand still high, Duprex says it will focus on selling its products online, while for Widyanata, it'll work with some retailers who have recently approached it to stock their stores.
From that video news, I want you to answer some questions. Question 1. How many hand sanitizers can the manufacturer produce per day due to COVID-19 outbreak? Question 2. What are the raw materials that affect the selling price of hand sanitizer? Question 3. Does the company depend on only one supply chain to supply its inputs? Please explain. Question 4. Based on the theory I just explained earlier, what are the variables that affect the hand sanitizer supply? Question 5. In this case, does the supply curve shift to the left or right? Give your explanation. Please write your answer in MS Word form and submit it to the Learning Room. And please pay attention to the deadline submission. Okay, that's all the lecture for this time.